Welcome to Brick by Brick, Building Wealth Through Homeownership. I am Kim Von Dohren, your realtor.
And I'm your banker, Ed Marko. So Kim, I think for a lot of people, especially from a buyer's perspective, what a real estate agent does is really filled with mystery and they just don't understand what it is that you do other than opening the door. Like they know enough that they see a house and there's a real estate agent sign out front. They know to call that phone number and that somebody will come and let them in. But what can you tell a client what they can expect from a real estate agent when they're buying a house?
Well, first and foremost, when they call off the sign, they've now called the agent representing the seller.
Okay.
So that's not their agent. But basically what you're doing is, besides opening a door, is you're representing them. So the first thing I do personally is I have a sit down with them and we get to know each other a little bit. There has to be a trust between us. And so we need to also get to know each other, feel comfortable with each other. I need for them to be able to trust that I know what I'm doing and that the direction or guidance that I give them comes from a place of actual knowledge. So we'll sit down and we'll have that chat, and then we'll talk about what is the overview, what's the process of purchasing a home. And because for first-time home buyers, that can be pretty overwhelming, I keep it pretty concise and I let them know that we will cover things as they come up so that they can trust that I will take them through the process step by step. They don't need to know every single step in the beginning, but that the first thing we're going to do is find out exactly what it is they're looking for through conversation. And then I'll set them up on a search so that homes are sent to them directly. Then once a home comes up that they find on their own or through the search I send them, then they're going to reach out to me to unlock the door and let them in.
So that's great. Now, let's say we found the house that we like. We're all thrilled. We want to go see that house. Of course, you are going to unlock the door for them, right? You're going to let them in. So what are you going to do for them while they're looking at the house? Is there anything that you do other than just say, "Oh, look, beautiful house"?
Yeah. So, I'm going to be looking for any red flags. They're going to be walking around looking at it as if, is this a layout I like? Is this the design I like? Do I like the yard? Can the basement be finished? Is this enough bedrooms? Are the bedrooms big enough? Where I'm going to be looking for things like the HVAC system or just any kind of red flags. Are there leaks underneath sinks? Am I flushing some toilets just to see, turning showers on sometimes to check the water pressure? So I'm looking at it with a little bit of a different eye than they are, especially on their first visit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you say first visit, then let's say they looked at the house and they say, you know what, we really like this house. We think we want to put an offer on it.
Well, back in the day when we had a little bit more time, I really prefer that my buyers go back a second time with preferably a trusted individual in their life so that they can have someone else's eyes looking at the house that isn't maybe enamored of it, but looks at it more scrutinizing besides me. And we have steps to make sure that we're protecting you against things that maybe you can't see. And we can talk about them later. But yes, I like to do more than one showing if possible. It's been very difficult in this market due to the quickness with which properties sell, but I can tell you that I have done it more recently.
So what, let's say that I'm looking at a house and I've got questions about the house that you just can't look at and know the answer to. What do I contact the seller or who does that?
So typically there is what's called a seller's disclosure. It's a 12-page document the seller completes about the home. I always say from the top of the chimney to the bottom of the basement, they're supposed to explain everything that they know. And what I will typically do is send that to my seller in advance of the showing so that they have the opportunity to see what alterations have been made. Do they get water in the basement? That's everybody's number one question. Of course, you can't know from the seller's disclosure whether or not the house smells like cat pee.
Right.
We'll know that when we get there.
Get there and find out on your own. Yay.
Right. But those things are indicated, as well as what's included are, is the seller leaving the refrigerator? Are they taking the refrigerator? Things like that. And we'll have a lot of that information before we ever look at the home. But once we get there, are other questions that the buyer has, then what I would do is I would reach out to the seller's agent and get any additional information we need about the property from the seller's agent.
Okay, great. So everything in a perfect world, we looked at the house, we love the house, we're going to make an offer on the house. Tell me about that. How does that work from the buyer's point of view? What's happening?
Sure. So we're going to sit down and discuss terms. Terms meaning, when do you want to close? What kind of financing are you using? And there's many terms throughout our agreement of sale, and we'll sit down and discuss those. And what we want to do is we want to structure that in a way that's going to be the most desirable to the seller, so that if we are competing against other offers, that we have the most desirable offer and they choose us. And one of the ways I do that is I try to get as much information about what the seller wants in regard to terms prior to sitting down and writing up the agreement of sale. But that's what we're going to do. And we're going to go through that with great detail. It is a 14-page document, so there's a lot of information to cover in the agreement of sale. And within that agreement, the other piece that we'll do is we will build in ways that you can get out of the contract should you choose along the way. So, for example, an inspection might be a way. Say you choose to do a home inspection. We do the home inspection. Something is found in the home inspection that makes you now no longer want to purchase the home. That home inspection is a contingency that now allows us to terminate the contract and you can move on to purchasing another home.
So let's say that doesn't happen. We're happy with everything. When we put in our offer and the seller says, oh, we're so very close, but I can't accept this offer the way it is because I was looking for this.
Right.
What happens at that point?
So that's where negotiating begins.
Okay.
So now what's going to happen is I know what my buyer wants, what they want to spend, what terms they can concede on, which terms they cannot. And so I'm going to have a discussion with the seller's agent. Again, we're going to discuss where are the areas in which we might be able to come together. Are there any areas we cannot? And we will go back and forth. And my number one goal as a buyer's agent is going to be to get the buyer the best deal while getting them the house. And the seller's agent is doing the same for their seller. However, everybody is in the situation or in the transaction for the same purpose, which is they want to sell a house. You want to buy their house. How can we make that work? And that's what we will spend time doing, going back and forth and negotiating terms that everybody can live with.
So in a perfect world again, so you negotiate back and forth with the seller's agent and everybody's happy. Now it's time to get the whole thing going so that we can get to what they call closing. What happens next? They've accepted the offer. We've accepted the offer. What can we expect next? What else does a good real estate agent do for their clients?
Well, you hope everybody's happy. You said everybody's happy.
Yeah.
I've sat at a settlement where everybody wasn't happy with the terms, but they agreed to them anyway. Those are not the most pleasant settlements to sit through.
Oh, I bet.
So what we'll do in the process from our agreement is accepted. Now I'm going to make sure that you get your deposit money to the seller's agency. We're going to make sure that any inspections are conducted. We're going to make sure that a title search has been done and we have selected a title company and they are going to also be handling the settlement. So they'll be getting tax certifications and water bills and all the documents we'll need for settlement. Then the appraisal will happen in that time frame as well. And the one thing that can happen, Ed, what can go wrong with the appraisal?
Sometimes an appraisal comes back short.
Yeah.
It's not,
yes,
it's not equal to the amount we want to pay for it.
Right. So if the appraisal comes in under the sales price, now we have another set of negotiating that occurs. Unless we have those terms laid out in the contract, which sometimes we do that in advance. But if not, now that's another moment where we're going to have to negotiate back and forth. And then finally, we're going to need to do a walkthrough. So the thing you do before you go to settlement is you go to the property and you walk through the property to make sure, because you're supposed to receive it in the same condition it was in when you viewed it. And so we will do that first. And from there, we typically go to settlement.
So you call that the final walkthrough, the day of settlement, or the day
yes.
before settlement?
We prefer the day of the day of settlement, but we do it sometimes the day before.
Make sure this is what we looked at before. This is what we're
Yes.
getting.
The water still turns on. There's no leaks. The
Right.
dishwasher still works,
Yeah.
etc.
The refrigerator that you said is going to be there is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get the closing. What happens at closing then?
At closing, you're going to go in there, and if you are using financing, you're going to sign all of your loan documents
With a pen this time.
with a pen.
Yeah.
That's right. And you're going to sign all the closing documents. You're going to bring a check for any money that you owe at settlement, and you're going to get the keys.
Yay.
And then you're going to be a homeowner. We're going to take some pictures.
Yeah.
And then that's the process complete.
Wow. So that's a lot. It seems to me like real estate agents actually do almost everything for the client on behalf of the buyer to make sure that they're well represented and protected through the whole process.
Yes, we do a lot more than we've even just discussed right here. For the sake of our podcast not being 6 hours long,
Right.
we are abbreviating down what it is that we do. But there are so many nuances, and there are so many times, places along the transaction where something can come up. You need somebody who does real estate every day.
Yes. Well, I can say this with absolute certainty. I've bought quite a few homes in my life, and I'm in the mortgage industry. I've been in lending my entire adult life. I have never bought a house without a real estate agent because I know what I don't know. And where real estate agents certainly aren't lawyers, I would think when it comes to buying a home, I would value the opinion of a good real estate agent over any lawyer. So from the bottom of my heart to your ears, if you're listening to this, if you're going to buy or sell a home, you need to contact a real estate agent and let them do for you what they do best.
Yeah, thank you for that.
No worries. So on that note, my name is Ed Marko.
And I am Kim Von Dohren.
You have been listening to Brick by Brick. Be sure and subscribe, post questions for future episodes, or comment. This is a Super Squirrel production, Super Squirrel Studios, Stony Creek Mills, Pennsylvania.